Hello, I'm Victor Nolet from Western Washington University in Bellingham, Washington in the United States. Today I want to talk about the strategies that you can help your teachers learn in your teacher education programs to help them educate for justice and sustainability. We often talk about the built environment and the natural world, and sometimes neglect our discussions to think about how the work with sustainable development really depends on a just and equitable justice and equity as the basis for our work. We're going to use the idea of a sustainability worldview today to help us think about how to help pre-service and early career teachers develop a more equity and justice oriented approach to their practice. Sustainability is this idea that involves concern for the long-term availability of those things that are most important for the preservation of life. And this bristlecone pine in the Inyo National Forest in the United States is a great example of sustainability. The tree is 4,800 years old, 4 millennia. And it's the oldest known organism on the planet. As we think about preserving those things for future generations that are most essential to life, we need to think about some core questions associated with sustainability. These are questions that we would encourage you to have your teachers in their preparation as teachers continuously consider. Do those who have benefited from development have a right to tell those who have not, too bad, you're out of luck? Do future generations have rights to the same opportunities that we've experienced? How do we distinguish needs from wants? And how do we distinguish our basic and our most urgent needs from those that are really more associated with improving quality of life and maybe even luxuries? What processes interfere with one's ability to meet needs? How far into the future should we look? And for that matter, is it our responsibility to be concerned for future generations? This idea of wants and needs continues to play out in our work. It can be very difficult for us to distinguish wants from needs as we fall prey to some of the economic variables that really are creating unsustainability today. Martin Luther King in 1967, Martin Luther King was an American civil rights leader. He said in a really memorable speech that he said, "I'm convinced that if we are to get on the right side of the world revolution, we as a nation must undergo a radical revolution of values. We must rapidly shift from a thing-oriented society to a person-oriented society. When machines and computers and profit motives and property rights are considered more important than people, the giant triplets of racism, materialism, and militarism are incapable of being conquered." Martin Luther King went on to say, "Our only hope today lies in our ability to recapture the revolutionary spirit and go out into a sometimes hostile world declaring eternal hostility to poverty, racism, and militarism. With this powerful commitment, we shall boldly challenge the status quo and unjust mores." Well, educating for sustainability really involves helping teachers become those revolutionary teachers, those radical teachers who are questioning the status quo, who are really engaging with that revolution of values. Some strategies that we can help teachers develop some ways we can help teachers develop those strategies include helping teachers see the interconnectedness of environmental, economic, and social justice issues. Helping people see that they're interconnected systems of oppression that create racism, homophobia, misogyny, as well as climate change and some of the things that we think of as part of sustainability. We can help teachers understand and resist economic factors that create injustice, inequity, and climate change. Not only do they need to help their students understand those variables, but we need to help teachers also understand how they operate in their own lives. We can help teachers integrate cross-cutting sustainability ideas into pedagogy and foundation classes. So we'll talk in a few minutes about some of those ideas. And we can help teachers develop a sustainability worldview. A worldview, or sustainability worldview, prepares students to engage effectively with the complexities, tensions, and uncertainties associated with creating a safe and just space for humans and other species today. It sometimes is those complexities and uncertainties that are most difficult for teachers to deal with, and for them to figure out how to incorporate into their practice. Your worldview is the unique combination of perspectives, values, knowledges, and beliefs that determine the way you see, interpret, and interact with the world. Philosophers sometimes refer to a worldview as Weltanschauung, the fundamental way a person views life as a whole. We each enact our worldview in the things we say, the choices we make, and the way we behave on a day-to-day and minute-to-minute basis. Seeing and interacting with the world through the lens of sustainability is a thoughtful and skillful way of being that is positive, life-affirming, future-oriented, and solutions-focused. An individual who has a sustainability worldview holds values consistent with the goals of sustainability, is willing to act on behalf of well-being for all forever, has sufficient knowledge to understand the dimensions of various sustainability issues, and has skills and abilities to act meaningfully and with effect. Values have to do with an individual's beliefs about what is important. We all hold values, and some of the work we can do is help people understand their values. Values inform decisions of right versus wrong, good versus bad, and desirable versus undesirable. You can think about how you can help learners, including teachers in your programs, choose value systems that are consistent with creating a safe and just space for humanity and other species now and in the future. Think about how you could provide opportunities for learners to clarify their own values and understand the values of others. And think about how you could help students investigate the values that underlie a sustainability worldview. Dispositions refer to an individual's tendency or likelihood to behave or think in a certain way. Values have to do with our ability to weigh good versus wrong, or bad, right versus wrong. Dispositions have to do with how likely is it that we're going to behave or act in a certain way. Dispositions involve clusters of preferences, attitudes, and intentions, as well as sets of capabilities that allow these preferences to become realized in a particular way. We all experience changes in preferences over our lifetime, and we develop new attitudes and establish new intentions on a regular basis. And these are all factors that affect our disposition to behave and think in a particular way. We can certainly help our students, our teachers, develop new dispositions that are more oriented towards a sustainability worldview. Our dispositions can be highly contextual. An individual with the ability to think critically under certain conditions will actually do so only if she or he has formed the habits to think critically or choose overtly to use critical thinking skills. Similarly, an individual might be disposed to be outgoing and gregarious in one situation, but reserved and quiet in another. An individual's ability to make choices and to act effectively so as to bring about a desired effect is agency. So agency is not only am I disposed to do something, but I actually have the ability to do it. So to enact a sustainability worldview, a person needs to know what needs to be done, how to do it, you must have the ability to act in a way that has meaningful impact, and you must believe that you can have an impact by acting. So I need to know what to do, I need to know how to do it, I have to have the ability to do it, and I have to believe that by acting I can bring about change. Some ways that teachers can help learners develop dispositions and agency associated with a sustainability worldview include creating experiences that allow learners to confront preconceptions and unsubstantiated preferences. Helping them take risks and do things that they may not think that they could do is one example. Provide positive models and examples that support development of new preferences and attitudes. This could happen through modeling that you do in the classroom or that your teachers do in their classrooms, or it could be through literature, books, media, those sorts of things. Help learners develop new capabilities that support dispositional changes. Give them opportunities to try things they haven't done before, to really test their own beliefs and their own dispositions. What are they inclined to do? And then provide guidance and support that encourages learners to follow through on intentions to make changes. How do you think about how to help teachers develop supportive classroom communities that support student risk-taking and change-making? Finally, then, there are some big ideas that are cross-cutting and that you might help your teachers think about how they could integrate them into their teaching practices. These are ideas that are not disciplinary based, but they really recur over and over again in our work with sustainability. Obviously, one is connecting with nature. How do you help people make a better connection with the natural environment? Equity and justice is a core cross-cutting theme that recurs often in our work with sustainability. Health and resiliency is an absolutely essential part of our work with sustainability. How do you help people think about, how can we help teachers think about ways to incorporate a focus on health and resiliency in their practices? How can we help teachers focus on the interconnectedness of issues, interconnectedness of ideas, and thinking local to global? How do we help people develop a global perspective? The idea that things that we do locally can have an impact around the world, that we actually can have an impact on global systems. And peace and collaboration is an absolute element of educating for sustainability. There can be no assurance of the well-being of future generations as long as we're continuing to rely on violence and militarism. Finally, thinking about respect for limits, that there are finite limits to all things on the planet, things that we depend on, and we need to be more aware of and respectful of those limits. And how do we all take responsibility for one another? The idea of universal responsibility is integral to the notion of creating a more just and sustainable place for all beings. And then now it's time to get active. What questions or thoughts do you have? You can today join one of the expert panels discussions that are happening at 15:30 in 4 time zones around the world. Check the conference website for times in your area. Thank you.